What a win, Knights. Welcome back to Charge On, episode 10 of Charge On the Believe Network. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. A lot to get to. I was wrong. Thank God I was wrong. I can't be more happy on a Wednesday night at 11:12 p.m. than I am right now after UCF. I mean, we were acting like SMU was a tough matchup, which we'll get into it. They were. But SMU's defense, if we could take anything from this week, is everything we've been saying about UCF's defense is legit. They are, in my opinion, a top 10 defense in this country, and we will get into it. Obviously, Nick Geddes on every single episode for the most part. But special guest for this episode, Tyler Karen, went to school with us. He was in the same program we were. Now is the radio graduate associate for the Orlando Magic, one of my previous positions. Let's start with Tyler. Tyler, thank you for coming on this late night. How'd you enjoy the game? And just give me your initial thoughts.
Yeah, well, you said this is episode 10. I have listened to all first 9 of the episodes, and I've just been waiting to get that call from Sean Green to get on this podcast. But it's great to be here. The game itself, I mean, had some downs early on. Game finished up. So luckily all of our spirits are high after that. This is the best I felt after a UCF win. But we'll still dive into some of that first half because we can't let that go unnoticed.
We cannot. And for everybody on Twitter, I saw all of it like, oh, are the haters going to stop talking? We're not haters, all right? We're going to give all the praise. But like every week, room for improvement. I mean, there's still things that need to be cleaned up, but a great win. Nick Geddes is one of, if not the most honest UCF fan on all UCF Twitter. So Nick, again, how are you doing? Obviously, first of all, Hurricane, I know it was supposed to come right through you. It looks like you made it out okay, so glad for that. How are you doing? And I think I'd agree with Tyler, probably the most confident after a UCF win after this past game.
Yeah, I won't have much snarkiness tonight, to be honest with you, based on what we saw. In the second half, that is. For the first half, I was texting y'all, and I'm like, man, I feel a rant coming from Sean Green later tonight after we saw that first quarter where SMU had over 200 yards, I think, offensively, and UCF's offense really couldn't move the ball at all. But that's why you play the rest of the 3 quarters, and this was a tale of two halves, this game. And the theme of it is defense, defense, defense. I mean, we talked about SMU's offense coming in, the best offense in the American Conference, one of the top 20 offenses in the entire nation, and they were held to 19 points tonight, came in averaging almost 39, I think. So I think that's the story of the game right there, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time on that. But yeah, not much. You're not going to get much negative out of me today. You're not going to get much negative out of me.
No, there's not. And you know what, Nick? I'm going to say 13 points because Rhett Lashley is a baby. The defense gave up 13 points. And I'm sorry. That's the one rant I'm going to go into tonight. I hate Rhett Lashley.
What did Rhett Lashley do to you? What did Rhett Lashley do to you?
Such a huge baby, slamming his headphones on the ground. Like, let's get something straight here. SMU got a bunch of calls tonight. There was one missed call on UCF, and all you see is Rhett Lashley on the sidelines with his pouty face, like looking over, begging for something to happen. I'm sorry, Rhett. Like, that last play, I already didn't like Rhett during the game. The stuff he was doing, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, you're getting whooped. Just stay on the sideline, bud. I get it. You want to give your team some confidence going into next week, but give me a break. Calling a timeout with 1 second left. I'm sorry. That is a poor move. I don't care what you want to tell your team, like, oh, that was good. That was just piss poor on his end. Now I'm a Rhett Lashley hater, and I know I don't have to see him next year, but I hope SMU loses at least 3 more games so they can, suck the rest of the year. That's just my take on Rhett Lashley. Didn't like him this game. Just my opinion. That's the one rant. I do not like Rhett Lashley. Let's go in to positives. Nick, did you want to say something on that? Did you want to elaborate?
No.
Okay.
I think you're being a bit over. The top on Rhett Lashley there, but continue.
I think I catch myself in between both of you on that. Sean, I absolutely agree with you with, again, that late touchdown. Sometimes coaches in that situation will throw out some guys that aren't used to getting playing time and see, what the heck, let's see if we can do something. That situation just didn't fit for me. And in this case, in this game, when you're down numerous touchdowns, you're right. It didn't feel right in this game. Um, but to go and say, to have a rant on him alone, I don't know about that. But I
No,
get,
it's a rant on just him. That with your backups too. I mean, if there's 30 seconds left, obviously, then they're going for the touchdown. I had no problem with that. Calling a timeout
mhm.
specifically with 1 second left to prolong the game, give me a break. You got whooped. Take the butt whooping and get the hell out of Orlando. Okay, sorry. That's my one rant. Okay, UCF. I think it'd be a disservice to this team if we didn't talk about the defense first. I mean, every week we talk about offense first because UCF has just been known over the years for offense, offense, offense. I'm sorry, this year's team is going to be known for this defense. I mean, I knew they were good. I think we all knew. We've been talking about it for weeks. We said they're a top 25 defense, top 20 defense. They're holding teams to, just insane numbers. But we always looked at the opponent and said, okay, let's see when they play a prolific offense. The holding SMU to what they did, they made Tanner Mordecai look average, which I never thought I would say that. Like after last year, he lit up this defense. They fly to the ball. They hold. There's no yards after the catch. They are stopping them as soon as they get caught. This defense is legit. So Tyler, let's start with you, man. What do you think about this defense? And, what do you think as a fan?
Mhm.
Like, what do you think from this defense moving forward?
Yeah, no. So I would say before this week, I still wasn't completely bought in on this defense. Now, they have been one of the top 10, 15 defenses in the country. They very much have a bend, don't break mentality. They will give up 1 million total yards a game. But what matters the most is the end result and what's up there on that scoreboard, which UCF, even in their loss to Louisville, was very good defensively. That first half should have been a 3 touchdown deficit for UCF, but their defense, even with Rashee Rice getting 9 receptions in that first half, they still limited that SMU offense to 13 points, was it? A field goal lead heading into halftime. Even Lashley at halftime, he said, "We feel we should be up by more. We should be up 2 scores at least." That's all accredited to UCF's defense. They gave UCF's offense the time to figure out their scheme. You mentioned in the last show, UCF lost days of practice. They lost scouting for SMU. SMU did not. They had more time to scout for UCF with the 2 delays with the hurricane. So, at halftime, they might have had all the scheming that they needed, and they got 3 extra days of practice right there in that halftime. So it was a completely different offense in the second half, and I credit that to the defense.
No, and that's the thing. Like, the way the defense was playing specifically today was, I don't want to say perfect game because obviously, again, I think the story of this defense is they give up a ton of yards, but when a team gets into the red zone, we're holding you to nothing or you're getting a field goal. You're not getting a touchdown on us. And I think that is scary for some of these teams now seeing an offense like SMU who, let's make no mistake, they moved the ball all over us. I mean, but it was a bend, don't break. They didn't give up any big plays to Rashee Rice, which was the focal point moving in was, listen, this man can beat you downfield. He can go over the top, you big NFL lengthy receiver. And I was getting frustrated in the first half, and I was banging my pillow. I'm like, why are we allowing these curl flat routes for 7 yards every single play? He's gonna, why are we allowing that? Ultimately, we saw there was 9 receptions in the first half for almost 100 yards, and you're like, are we just going to allow this every game? They'll get first downs every single time. Like, if you're just going to allow that. Obviously, the defense shifted and didn't allow that as much. They played a little bit more up, but they also didn't allow the big plays. The corners today, Devontae Brown, especially getting that coverage. Corey Thornton, they were throwing at Thornton every other play. They held their own today, Tyler.
Yeah.
They held their own.
No, absolutely. And that's what, with the Rashee Rice in the first half, it was, like you said, those hook routes. He was getting 10 yards anytime you looked his way. Like on his first 10 targets, he was 9 of 10, 9 receptions on 10 targets. That's an issue. Luckily, that didn't convert to points. Like you said, you could tell they had an emphasis on limiting him down the field. They didn't want to give up any long ball plays to Rice. So they lack off 5 to 10 yards. They'll let him get that curl route. Why SMU? This is where the play calling of SMU. I don't know if UCF schemed him perfectly in the second half, but I can't believe that he gets whatever it was 3, 4. He finished with 12 receptions for 122 yards, or in that ballpark. You're telling me that UCF schemes so well at halftime for him in the second half that you limit him to only a handful of targets in the first half after he's catching everything you throw at him? I think that some of it was on the play calling, but the UCF defense, they did what they had to do. I did see more of an emphasis on pressing him in the second half opposed to backing off of him. And you hit it with the DBs. Brandon Adams had 2 deflections in the end zone. One of them was probably a PI that went uncalled. That was the one call that you were talking about with Lashley that he was upset about. Corey Thornton had one. Devon Wilson had the interception at halftime. Devontae Brown, Nikai Martinez. We had 5 red zone or end zone deflections. 1 or 2 of those gets down, and this is a whole different ball game. So can't praise the DBs enough on their red zone defense and defense in the end zone as a whole. But yeah, in that first half, just way too many hooks to Rice. The rushing game, I think they did well. They gave up that 139 rush for a touchdown. That was the lone touchdown of the game before the last second score. I think that was too. SMU was playing fast. UCF was winded. They gave one up the middle. We didn't see that again the rest of the game.
No. And I think that's the thing. So we allowed 113 rushing yards. I think one positive, especially on this defense, and there's so many positives. I mean, this is a fun defense to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last couple of years, it's almost like it's so fun to watch the offense, and then you get nervous. You're like, okay, can we hold them? We don't want to get into a scoring match, especially with a team like SMU, right?
Mm-hmm.
113 rushing yards. You never feel, especially this season, you can't really run the ball on us. I mean, if you're going to beat us, it's going to be through the air. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, besides that one big run, they didn't really get anything on the rushing attack, and they tried. SMU tried. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were trying, to run it to the outside, to come up the front. Like, they were trying everything. Mm-hmm. Nothing was working. Nothing was working on the ground.
No, and I think that goes back to the play calling as well and the tempo calling. When SMU was playing that UCF fast offense, they were able to wear out the UCF defense. But then in the second half, you kind of saw things slowed down a bit. I do think when they did try to pick up the tempo, UCF responded better in the second half. But that was the reasoning of that touchdown. It was they're playing fast. UCF defense is they're not completely set. Not all guys are committed to their assignments. They're not completely set. Not all guys are committed to their assignments. And you give up a run up the middle. So that goes for 40 yards and a touchdown. So again, if SMU, they continue to play that fast-paced offense, they can get more points on the board. They got into the red zone 4 times tonight. I think that number pushes into 6 or 7 if they keep that fast-paced tempo. But they kind of went away from it in the second half. So props to UCF defense, and also might want to look into that play call for SMU.
Yeah, let's talk about SMU's play calling. I mean, especially from the start, right? I was looking at the game. I don't want to compare anybody to UCF's 2018 offense or 2017 offense because nobody can really compare to that. The pace and the tempo was almost identical. The way that they were going, the speed at which SMU was going. But as we all know, more similar to Josh Heupel's offense, when you go at that speed, yes, you're going to be getting on teams pretty early out. You might get a huge lead early, but then your playbook kind of goes from, 65 plays to maybe 10 plays that you really like, that you will just keep running and hope the defense doesn't figure it out. I think, and Nick, don't get me wrong, I think that ultimately hurt SMU because they ran their best plays out front. And the defense, the story for the defense has been they basically give up a touchdown on the first or second possession. They give up a touchdown early, and then that offense kind of gets stagnant and doesn't put up touchdowns later on. Do you think ultimately that hurt SMU with great play calling in the beginning parts of the game, but then it kind of got stagnant as the game kind of progressed.
I think that's part of it, but I think one of the other things that hasn't been mentioned, I don't think, and they said it on the telecast, I think in the first quarter, they did that little package where they showed the history of Rhett Lashley and Gus Malzahn. And the narrative they were saying is Rhett Lashley's going to know everything that's coming from Gus Malzahn because he just has been with them for, 18 years or whatever it was. He's going to know everything. They didn't mention Gus Malzahn is the teacher here, okay? He's the mentor, not the mentee. And I think Gus Malzahn, and Travis Williams too, he was there for 3 years, Rhett Lashley at Auburn, I believe. And Travis Williams is there at that same time. You have to think practice every single day. I think there was a lot of familiarity on the UCF side of things as well. And then it becomes just kind of a chess match. And I think UCF's defense, ranked top 10 nationally now after this game, was just more well-equipped to handle it. So I think that's part of it, what you said, but I also think it also comes down to there's so much familiarity between these two teams, and it was all about Rhett Lashley and what's he going to do with Gus, and I think UCF clearly went out on that battle.
And just to add it, I will think there was one play that it kind of just looked like Rhett Lashley and SMU had down pat. They knew exactly when the formation was there. It was a trick play. Whenever Bowser was in there and they were doing the laterals to try to get a play deep, SMU stopped that every time. Ultimately,
and forgive me if y'all got into it, but what was the Gus Malzahn's first trick play call there in the first quarter? I think it was. It was we did 3 back passes, all that to do a screen to Johnny Richardson on the side.
Yes, on third and 6.
On 3rd and 6,
and I think that might have been the first one. But yeah, the 4 double reverse plays, which that one was, I think, the only one for a pass. The others ended up in a negative yardage or maybe 2 yards. The first 3 didn't work. I don't know why UCF was so consistent in sticking to a double reverse motion play again and again and again. And that third one, I had noted that. What is that play call on 3rd and 6, a double reverse flea flicker pitch for a behind the yard of scrimmage screen?
I don't subscribe to we got to get something going. Let me try to take a shot and let me try to do this. That wasn't even taking a shot. You did a lot of stuff just to set up a little screen pass. That just wasn't there to begin with. I don't. Sometimes these coaches, I think, just overthink it in those situations.
The one was on 2nd and 1. If you remember, it was 2nd and 1. They got a great first down play. And then I think they're thinking, we're going to catch them off guard. They think we're going to run this. I think they had Bowser. Now, granted, they ran a version of this play 3 times in this game, and it didn't work once. So I might be mistaken. But I'm pretty sure the first time SMU called a timeout on it, because it looked like it was Bowser and Wildcat. And I was like, okay, they're probably going to run a trick here. And SMU called a timeout. So they knew the formation. Then later on, it was a 2nd and 1. And they ran the stupid 3 pass, flea flicker. I think everybody looked. It was an atrocious play. Way too much thinking involved in that one specifically. When you do have Isaiah Bowser that can literally get you a first down with a quick run. They couldn't stop Bowser with 2 yards tonight. Give credit for Bowser when we talk about offense, but they couldn't stop that. Defensively, Jason Johnson, kind of my standouts, and we could talk about these guys more. One of Nick's favorite guys, Jason Johnson, 2 fumble recoveries tonight. He's kind of like a quiet stud on this defense. You don't see him on the field until he's making a big play. You don't spot him. I think Devod Wilson played really well tonight. We already talked about the 2 corners, but Devod Wilson's probably just Mr. Consistent on this team as a safety. He plays really well. And then defensive line. They didn't really, I'll say this, they didn't pressure the quarterback too much. They weren't, but they were collapsing, his pocket and forcing him out, which we all know Mordecai, is not, he clearly showed he was not a running quarterback tonight. Tyler, who is your kind of standout? I know the defense, everybody stood out tonight, but give me a guy on the defense that really stood out for you for this night's defense.
Yeah, as far as the front line linebacker, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste was all over the place tonight. He was the leader in tackles, 9 total tackles, 8 of them being solos. He was flying around all over there. And then for DBs, I'm going to go, they attacked Thornton a lot tonight. Corey Thornton was getting work tonight. He had some plays that he got beat on some, but he was another guy that, like I was talking about earlier, with those end zone deflections, Corey Thornton was all over the place. So I'm not sure what he finished with the tackles, but I think he was a sign. This could have been a flaw. I think Devontae Brown should have been on Rice the entire night. Thornton was matched up with him a lot. So for how much he was matched up across from a future NFL receiver and Rasheed Thornton, I think that, and Rasheed Rice, I think Corey Thornton did a pretty good job on the defensive end tonight.
Yeah, and Corey Thornton got, last year he had an up and down year, mostly down. He wasn't very consistent last year. That was a lot of the questions going into this year was, how is that cornerback room going to do? Hey, we know we have Devontae Brown, but can Corey Thornton step up? And he answered that call tonight. There were two, like the one touchdown that should have been a touchdown, he knocks that ball out. Huge play in the game. And he never gave up, which is important. He didn't just let guys run all over him. UCF defense were not allowing yards after the catch tonight, which was crucial in this win. Nick, guy on the defense that stands out to you.
I feel like I've said this for almost every game, but I thought it rang true again tonight, and that's Tremont Morris-Brash, who, if you've been listening to this podcast, I've said so much about him and thinking that he was going to have a career year this year, and he's done that. And you factor in the numbers tonight where he had 6 tackles, 2 for loss, and a sack. Career year and then some. He's already, I think, about to eclipse last year's tackle mark. He's already 2/3 of the way plus to his tackle for loss mark of last season, and he's already just 1 sack short of having his career high for a season. So I was saying he was going to get that over a 12-game sample size at least, and here we are 5 games in, and he's about to have a actually career year in that time frame. So I think, again, it starts up front in your line of scrimmage. I thought Tremont Morris-Brash is the leader of that, and I'll give it up to the entire defensive line as a whole. I mean, anytime you hold a team under 4 yards rushing in college football, that's hard to do. And UCF did that tonight. You forced Mordecai to throw 40-something times, I think threw 45 times, and forced him to beat you, and the back end was great as well. But I think, like we always say, it starts with Morris-Brash, it starts with Celiscar. I mean, those are the guys that I think are always going to be key here in these victories.
That's who, too. I want to touch on Josh Celiscar. I didn't see him much tonight. He wasn't involved. He finished with 3 tackles. He was a part of a tackle for loss, but Celiscar was kind of a non-factor tonight. So how about what that says to the entire defensive unit? You have Josh Celiscar, who has been one of our more consistent defensive players when he's healthy the last couple of years, and he's kind of a non-factor in a game, and you're still not giving them those numbers. It speaks a ton about this whole defensive unit.
Well, I think it says, number one, credit SMU's offensive line. I think they actually played a very good game against this tough UCF D line. Anthony Maltavo was a stud tonight. I mean, he was running after balls all over. If I was looking at a guy on the D line tonight that I would basically give a game ball to, I would say him, just basically out of his sheer will to get to balls with that big, huge, clobber hand.
Or rock on his hand.
I mean, yeah. My girlfriend was sitting here and she was like, wait, is his hand broken? And I'm like, oh, yeah, usually on your defense, if you got something wrong with your hand, they just make it a ball. And she goes, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, because it doesn't matter. And he was flying everywhere. Linebackers tonight, it's an embarrassment of riches that UCF has. Tremont Morris-Brash, Nick brought him up, the sack in the end zone for the safety. Huge play. I think that's probably the biggest play of the game, to be completely fair. I mean, that kind of took the sails out of SMU, even though they were basically on their 2-yard line or whatever. That kind of took the wind out of SMU sails for sure.
Yeah, and I think just in general with this defense, we talked a lot about identity, I believe, after the Georgia Tech game. What's the identity of UCF? And we talked a lot about that offensively. I guess it was staring right in front of our face, and we talked about it, but probably not as much. This is a defensive football team, and it's weird to say that about UCF. I mean, in my time of watching it, and I know, Sean, you've been watching a lot longer than I have, I can't find a UCF defense that's been even near the stratosphere of this one. I really can't. I mean, I tweeted tonight, I think UCF, at this moment in time, the way the defense is playing, if they just average 25 to 30 points, which really isn't great offensively at all, but that's kind of about I think, where they're going to be at on most days because of the inconsistencies there. But if they do that, I think they're going to win more games than not. I mean, I wish they get the Louisville game back and you could be 5-0 right now. But it is what it is. But I think they have a shot to win the American if they play defense like this. And what's a tougher offense they're going to face down the stretch here? There's really not one in in Cincinnati, I guess. But this was the class of the American.
No, and that's the thing. Like, ultimately, I think there's a tier. And I will say, top-heavy American is pretty good this year. I mean, you have Tulane, Memphis is 4-1, you got Cincy. SMU was 2-2, but I mean, they had two tough games, Maryland, TCU. They could have beat TCU, and TCU's, number 17 in the country right now. Like, SMU's a tough team. This was not an easy game. I know the score says different, 41-19 or 40-19, whatever the score is. It doesn't show how tough of a game this was, on the outskirts. SMU's going to win a lot of games in this conference this year specifically. Like, they might be a top 4 team in this conference at the end of it pretty easily. But I don't think you're wrong, Nick. I think, and we talked about it last week, and we said, I think ultimately this defense, because of how good this defense is, I think you can win a game. Our defense will keep us in every game. It doesn't matter. Like, look at it. We can look at just the fact SMU is pretty much the same team from last year. Only difference is the head coach, right? That score is 55-28, and it flipped in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to look at. I mean, that just shows you how much improvement this defense has made. And pay Travis Williams anything, because he will be a head coach. And I don't think Rob texted us and said 5 years. No. Like 1 to 2 years. Some team is going to offer him a bag of money because he's a good recruiter, and now it's showing he can coach up a defense. Pay that man whatever he wants because you need to keep him here.
Throw the Juan Soto at him. Give him 15 years of whatever he wants.
Good for the statue. Let's name a building after him. I don't know what you got to do to get it.
Right.
Do whatever. But all I'll say is it's from watching this team. Just go back to even 2 years ago in 2020, and every game it felt like UCF could score 45 or 50 with ease, or they were going to give 40 or 50 up with ease. And I remember, if y'all recall, there was a Saturday game, I think, against Memphis where they lost 52-49. And you're just like, how does that happen? How do you score 49 points and lose? And I don't get that feeling with this team. And that in just 2 short years. And a lot of these players, they were on that team. So it is amazing what Travis Williams has done here. And I agree with both of y'all. This guy's going to be a head coaching candidate. I don't know, maybe at this offseason, but another year of this, depending on how it goes, he's probably going to go somewhere else. And that's just going to be the reality of it, unless you pony up the money.
That's what UCF has to do anything. T-Will is a reason why UCF's identity has shifted. I think it's been a tough couple of years as a UCF fan, even when we're winning a majority of our games, but we still have seasons where it feels like we're losing because we're so used to this explosive offense, putting up 50 points a game against teams in the American. And then we're still putting up a ton of points, but we're not coming out on top because our defense was that bad. Yeah. So now we've completely shifted. And at the start of the year, the offense, for the most part, wasn't looking great. They looked good versus FAU, but bad Louisville game. Start the season with a massacre on South Carolina State. That's South Carolina State. What are you going to do? But it was tough at the beginning of this year because of what are we going to do on offense? And every game we play now, it's like, it doesn't matter because we got that defense that, like Nick said, if we put up 3 touchdowns, we're probably going to win that ball game.
No, yeah, and this is the perfect game. Like we said, this is the game on the schedule. This is probably the best offense you're going to face. If this defense shows out against SMU, this is the game. This is the game to show everybody that's picked SMU money line and said there's no way UCF wins this. This defense won the game. I don't care that the offense put up 40 points. This defense won us the game, and I think they are a top 10 defense in the country. Enough said. And they'll be talked about for the rest of the year. I don't care. We're 32 minutes into this podcast, and we've only talked about the defense. That shows you all. That tells you everything you need to know. This defense is legit. I will take it to my grave and to the end of the year. I love this defense, and I never thought I'd say that about a UCF defense ever in my entire life. So thank you, Travis Williams. And thank you to all the players playing your guts out. Love watching you play. Let's talk about the offense. Okay. Improvements all across the board, right? First half looked like every single first half this season where you're looking at the offense and you're like, John Rice can't throw accurately. It's bad play calling, not running the ball effectively. Where was RJ Harvey in the first half? Where's Johnny Richardson? All these questions that continuously got piled up. And in the second half, it looked like finally, after begging, Gus is like, okay, screw it. And it actually kind of worked out. So, Nick, I'll start with you. Kind of, what are your takeaways from the offense? What did you like? What did you didn't like? And what do you see out of this offense moving forward? I know it's a lot of questions in one part.
I know you're really killing me here, man. But anyway,
give me a 5-page soliloquy. I need it.
I can write one for you. I can churn one out, I bet. But I'm not going to do that tonight. But if you listen to me, I've always been big on Johnny Richardson, and I've been saying a lot this year. And there's been games where he's gotten like under 10 touches, and I'm like, that just can't happen for your most explosive player next to Ryan O'Keefe on offense. Well, tonight he got 4 touches, and UCF scored 41 points. So how much do I know? But I agree with you. The fact that we don't see RJ, and this is a constant theme, it feels like. We don't see RJ Harvey at all in the first half usually. He seems like he's always a guy they bring in the second half, and he impresses in those short spurts. And again, we've talked a lot about Isaiah Bowser, and I know he had the 3 touchdowns tonight. Getting in the end zone has never been his problem down there at the goal line. But there is a lack of, I guess, burst there that I think there was last year. The offensive line still kind of concerns me with their lack of being able to run block for him. Those lanes are not there. John Rice Plumlee, not his greatest night on the ground either. I said I wasn't going to be negative, but here I go bringing out the negative.
All negative so far.
All negative go far. I'm about to turn it around. I'm going to turn it around. Hold up.
Okay.
The big positive, and I think this was a difference here, especially in the second half, is we got the emergence of Kobe Hudson, who we have not really seen much of this season, and we forget Auburn's leading receiver last year in the SEC, and now you have a 3-headed monster of him, O'Keefe, and Baker. And I think by having those 3 guys out there, 3 guys who can win every matchup on their own when they want to, if you're any defense, especially SMU's defense, you've got no shot. So I think that helped having Kobe Hudson out there. He's going to draw more attention to him as he gets acclimated in everything here, adjusted to UCF, and it allowed more Javon Baker. It allowed more for Ryan O'Keefe. So I think that subtle little addition, or more so of just having him out there now, has helped UCF's offense, and you saw that especially in the second half.
No, and it's huge. And I just want to, we said it last episode, I need RJ Harvey in there over Bowser on first and second down. It's no offense to Bowser. I mean, again, Bowser gets into the end zone. If you're on the 3-yard line, do your wildcat. I think we've all grown accustomed now to running the wildcat when you're down there. I mean, it works. It hasn't been stopped to this game. But the burst on RJ Harvey is insanely better and different than Bowser right now. And we can blame, the lanes that the offensive line is creating. We can blame it on that, but RJ Harvey got 7 carries, and he has 69 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. Bowser had 62 yards on 15 carries. So we can blame it on offensive line play. That is Sean from week 2. I mean, that is week 2, Sean. Week 5, Sean, it's not the offensive line. I think it's Bowser. Now, Bowser had his best run of the season. He cut it from left to out to the right. He got like 20 yards. It was his longest run of the year. That was a good run. But I think Bowser thinks from last year, let me just push up the middle. I'm going to get the same number of yards as last year, like 8 yards rushing up the front. And that's just not what this UCF offense needs out of the running backs. They need to kind of take it inside, take it to the outside. And RJ Harvey's burst and speed is kind of what this offense needs, Tyler, I think specifically right now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I've been listening. The praise with RJ Harvey and the praise with Johnny Richardson. I've been on that train too. You hit it right on the head. put Bowser in now Wildcat, however you want to use him, inside the 10-yard line, 5-yard line. He has 8 rushing touchdowns or whatever it is on the season, 7 or 8. So that works. He is going to be our leading rusher for touchdowns this season. But with the other 95 yards of the field, Johnny Richardson and RJ Harvey are the better guys for the job. The quick, explosive, speedy guys are going to get the job done more. RJ Harvey is averaging 6.2 yards per carry. That's a top 30 average in all of college football this year. Average 9.9 tonight. So the fact that we've seen very little RJ Harvey nursing back from an injury over the summer, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe if that's why you ease him in a little bit. But now we're 5 weeks in. We've seen that this guy is consistent on the 7 rushes that we give him a game. Let's get him up to that 15 rushes a game and put Isaiah Bowser in the backseat for the first 95 yards of the field.
I got to give you an NFL example, or a couple here. The obvious one being Isaiah Bowser is Zeke Elliott, and Harvey and Richardson are Tony Pollard. Bowser is Najee Harris, and Richardson and Harvey are Jaylen Warren. You see, it's the same thing. It's the same offensive line. They're running the same schemes here, the same plays. One hits the hole hard, and one has the burst, and one doesn't. And once you get to a certain point, and Sean, you brought up a good point. Week 2, we can talk about the offensive line not blocking. We're 5 games in now. We kind of know what we are, what we aren't, and who these guys are and who they aren't. And there's a consistent theme there with Bowser, so agree with both of y'all there. If you're going to use him, I think you need to kind of pick those spots, obviously in the goal line packages, because whatever it is, the production we saw last year, it's not there this year. Tonight, it didn't need to be because, again, and maybe it doesn't need to be on most nights. It doesn't have to be a Picasso with this offense anymore. It really doesn't. I think that's a good thing.
No, and that is a good thing. I mean, we'll talk about JRP right now because I think if we're looking at it from a game perspective against opponent, best game of his career. I know the FAU game statistically was his best game, but against SMU, you're going to have to put up points, knowing you're going to have to go put up points. Being down at halftime 13-10, that's, I was going into halftime, my confidence was very low. I'm like, here we go again. We're getting the ball to start the half, but we're going to have to go drive down. And guess what they did? Now, we'll talk about the receivers because I think this was the coming out party. The receivers heard everyone talking bad about all the drops and stuff, and they really showed out. But Tyler, JRP, I think specifically, now obviously I think we all have a good sense of JRP at this point. He can make some really good throws, some really bad throws, but he can extend plays, can make some bad decisions. But what is your overall thought process on his game tonight? And how do you think he can play and do moving forward?
I mean, if you're a UCF fan or just college football fan in general who's watched a lot of UCF this season and watched UCF tonight, you would be a liar if you said the thought of, do we bring in Mikey Keene next week and try to figure some stuff out before we play Cincinnati in 2 weeks? If you say that thought didn't cross your mind, you're a liar. When JRP is starting 2 for 6 in the first half and the receivers are there, he blatantly threw into what should have been an interception on that opening drive. He got lucky on that one, but then he continues to miss his targets. That's where you're thinking, okay, JRP's ability to run has been his edge. Maybe UCF fans are sick of having that running edge and want to see Mikey Keene, who had an offseason to improve, but we know what we're getting with Mikey Keene. JRP, it's been a question mark every week. He threw for 49 yards last week. So you just never, at this point, you hope you can get this second half JRP consistently, because that's the best UCF offense that we've seen in the second half of the game tonight. As you said, he's aggressive. You show that he can he'll stick with the game, starting 2 for 6, ending with 20 for 29 for 316 yards and 2 touchdowns, and his ability to move the ball on the ground. It is a bit worrisome how physical he is and how unafraid he is. As UCF, we saw our the 2 best quarterbacks we've seen in the last 4 years at UCF end their UCF careers by trying to make a play. When we had Mackenzie Milton at USF going down the sideline for a 10-yard rush, out of bounds, gets tackled, comes down wrong, UCF career over. Dylan Gabriel last season at Louisville, I think it was, or wherever it was, trying to make a play to win the game, gets wrapped up, comes down awkward, UCF career over. So hate. That's why you kind of cringe every time you see JRP going out on the run, because he'll get into you. And we saw him do a full somersault into the end zone at FAU. So he is not afraid to get physical, which is a bit worrisome, but you love that you have that mentality in your quarterback. He's a fighter, and I do think he can win us some ball games. He just has to be more consistent. We want that second half offense.
What I will say, though, and they've clearly been talking to him. Like, number one, I've never seen Gus as mad as he was tonight. I don't know why. Like, we were up 41-13, and he was still screaming with 4 minutes left. You could tell he was getting into JRP this game specifically. I think, number one, he was sliding a lot more. I mean, there was the one where he slid, and I'm like, oh, he's not – like, he could probably pick up the first down if he just pummeled into a guy. I think they're in his ear about that, saying you need to slide more because we need you. I mean, we're at game 5. So that, number one. And number two, I think they basically said, listen, we're going to need to throw the ball to win this game. I'm going to put it on you to make the plays, make the throws, because we won't win this game if you don't. They threw it 29, 30 times. So it's very evident that Gus understands, like, listen, yeah, we can run the ball like we're one of the top 10 teams in rushing in college football. But, Nick, they made it very apparent tonight with how they were playing the game. Listen, we're going to need to throw the ball to win games. We can't just do what we've been doing the last couple weeks.
I mean, certainly he's not Josh Allen. He can't. There's only so many hits this guy could take.
God, I wish he was.
Yeah,
that'd be so great.
Yeah, I wish he was
my
too.
God.
It'd be awesome. But he's not.
Let's get a Mackenzie Milton first before Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Let's just get back to a KZ level. Even a Dylan Gabriel level.
Yeah.
We'd be a
Like,
top
let's get
10 team in the country if we had a Mackenzie or Josh Allen.
Probably so. But listen, I look at John Rice Plumlee, and I don't want to take anything away from what he did tonight. The second half was a great performance. Whatever. Take the defense out of it for a second, because we just hyped up the defense and how you're going to win a lot of games because of the defense. As a coach, I want to come into the stadium every day, and I want to know my quarterback is good enough to win me games if something goes wrong. And we have 5 games to go off of, so almost half a season. He was great against South Carolina State, of course. He was bad against Louisville. He was much better than against FAU. And then he was shockingly bad against Georgia Tech. And now here he is. I would say he played, I said fantastic, but probably just good tonight. So you just don't know what you're getting from a week-to-week basis with this guy. And I think that's dangerous. That's dangerous when that's your quarterback. And, Tyler, you brought up Mikey Keene, and I was thinking the same thing after the first quarter. I'm like, when do we make this switch yet? But then again, Gus has hitched his wagon to John Rice Plumlee, and this is his system. And Mikey Keene clearly does not fit what Gus wants to do here and how he wants to operate. The problem is when the running game is not up to snuff and you're averaging 4 yards a carry or less, like UCF's been doing a lot this year, and it's going to have to get done through the air with John Rice Plumlee. In some of these games where maybe it's a little tighter, I still just don't have that confidence right now. I mean, he played well tonight because the defense just wasn't going to give it up, I think. And eventually SMU's defense just broke. And, give the ball to your skill guys like Ryan O'Keefe and just let him go like he did on that 58-yard touchdown. So I still have lots of concerns. I'll give him his props tonight. I think it's a good thing. The bye week is coming at a perfect time. And looking at the schedule ahead, right after you get a nice little game against Temple. I mean, go out there.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be so fun next week.
Yeah, let's get some goodwill. Get 2 games in a row with the bye week before you get into some of the meatier schedule, because it's going to get a little bit more daunting here the second half of the season than I think it was in the first half. So I'm still in a wait-and-see approach with John Rice Plumlee, though.
Which is understandable. And I think, again, we're game 5. I think we all know what we're getting out of this team now. And we said that last week, but this week specifically even more. I mean, you know what you're getting out of John Rice. Now, you might not know what you're getting per week, but in the first quarter, okay, like if John Rice is struggling, this is probably what we're getting for this specific game. It might be more of a run-heavy game because he's not on it. This game, the receivers just really showed out. And specifically, Javon Baker, again, it's an every week thing now. He's our number one. O'Keefe is the guy. But for this quarterback, right, for JRP, him and Javon Baker clearly just have this thing going where if it was Mikey in there, yeah, I think O'Keefe would be his guy, but both of them, outstanding games today. Javon Baker, 6 receptions, 138 yards. O'Keefe, best game this season, not even a question. 6 receptions, 117 yards, and the 2 tutties. That long run looked like vintage O'Keefe from last year, so it was good to see that. And Kobe Hudson, finally seeing something out of Kobe. He really wasn't much of a factor the first couple weeks, wasn't played, but today, 3 recs for 53 yards. I think that's what we need to see, especially out of those 3 guys specifically. For John Rice, now granted, he made a couple great throws. I mean, the one to O'Keefe, that back left, that was an amazing throw. The one to Javon, like the over the shoulder on the right sideline, that was beautiful. Those were his 2 best throws, maybe of the season, definitely of tonight. Again, though, I don't want to talk bad about JRP. A lot of his throws were slants, and then the receivers doing stuff with it after. I mean, the 51-yard throw to Baker, that was him basically willing himself to inside the 5. That was a slant. That wasn't anything with JRP. But I think Tyler Gus has kind of just figured out he's not very accurate throwing the ball too downfield. We need to keep everything close. Our receivers are faster than the DBs. Hopefully he's accurate on those slants, and our receivers are just better to kind of get yards after the catch.
Yeah, I'm glad that you noted that 50-yard catch from Javon Baker.
Was
that
all Javon
40
Baker.
yards on yards after reception. But I noted that drive, 5 plays, 79 yards, took a minute 39 drive. I noted that because that was, if you look at that stat line, it's like, wow, this is like an old UCF stat line. You know, not many plays, not much time off the clock. You're just going with it. But then if you know and you watch, yeah, that was a slant that turned into a big play. I'm kind of okay with it. We've seen that Plumlee can't do the deep ball like we would maybe like him to be able to, maybe like Mikey Keene can. However, I think that you hit it perfect with Gus is bought into this slant system, this short system, which we saw JRP struggle with early tonight, and then it got better towards the end. And we have the caliber of receivers to run that offense. And if you run and you hit all of these guys 5 times a game on slants, one of them is going to break off for 50 yards. Whether it's Baker, whether it's O'Keefe, you can pick any of them. They're that talented, that quick, that skilled that they can make plays out of nothing. So overall, I was okay with I was glad to see him have a couple of deep balls. I still think the receivers made those plays. They were not like they were wide open catches, both tough catches. But I'm glad to see him do that. But I think that the 10-yard throws will lead to much more success for UCF.
No, yeah, and that's going to be our offense. I mean, hopefully JRP can make those throws down the field at some point. But right now you can just tell the accuracy is not there on those throws. But listen, 31 unanswered by the offense. I mean, we can dissect every little thing tonight with the offense. I mean, but at the end of the day, 31 unanswered. Credit to the defense, credit to the offense. They both played outstanding tonight, the defense especially, and the offense got it going. I mean, that's what is most important tonight.
And make sure you mention my boy Boomer, okay? I mean, that's a
okay. Time out. Okay, I love my boy Boomer. Boom, I love Boomer. Some of those extra points, little suspect.
Man, who cares?
They were drifting. Who
cares?
I'm sorry. I know.
No.
Listen, I don't care. He makes them. I could care less. All I'm saying is the extra points. For a second, I'm like, oh, that was a miss. I didn't even see the ball. It was low and left. I'm like, whoa. But he makes them, so I could care less.
So why'd you bring it up?
Point it out.
Why'd you bring it up?
Well, honestly, straight up, because the one I was like, oh, God, he missed that. And then they put up I'm like,
but he didn't.
That was amazing.
You know who would have missed it? You know who would have missed it? Do I need to say his name on the show?
Oh,
Obarski.
here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, I know.
Did you see?
Now here's also.
Did you see?
I don't know if you guys noticed this.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm switching gears.
Yeah, no, you're cutting me off.
To
I'm trying to talk about special teams here.
sorry.
I'm very passionate about special teams, and for a little bit here, I thought
I do always forget it.
Yeah, and for a little bit here, watching Obarski for the past, I swear, like two decades, I feel like I had a chance. I feel like I still had a chance as a walk-on. I think I have some eligibility, but Boomer, my boy Boomer, has taken that away from me, unfortunately. What did he make, like a 40-plus yarder tonight? The confidence that I have in a kicker to make a 40-plus yarder wearing a UCF uniform. I mean, Boomer. My favorite player on the team.
UCF kicker since Matty Wright.
My favorite.
That's a fact.
You know what? Matty Wright broke my heart as a Buccaneer fan, by the way, this past Sunday.
We don't know.
He broke my heart.
We're not talking about that.
I'm just saying. I mean, they said Matt Wright, UCF, and I'm like, oh boy.
Oh,
he made every kick. He made
now.
every kick, man.
Yeah,
broke my heart. But
did you guys notice the switch punters?
Yes.
Does anybody understand what happened?
No idea. The broadcasters even, because it started McCarthy.
Yeah.
And then I think they went to Austin and then back to McCarthy. I think they were switching around with him.
McCarthy had 5 punts. Five
Right.
punts. And then Osteen had 2. But I didn't know. I'm like, there's got to be, like, because McCarthy's been great. I mean, he's been punting the ball. I don't know if they didn't like one of them, or I have no idea. Hopefully Gus talks about it so I can get information on that. The punting was fine tonight.
Special teams was great.
Yeah.
All around, I think special teams was great tonight.
Xavier Townsend, love that freshman. Love him. He's going to be really good. I mean, he's already good, but he's going to be really good for us. Yeah. All in all, great win. Let's quickly go over expectations moving forward. I think we've got, East Carolina. If I'm not mistaken, Nick, their number one running back, I think, is out the rest of the year. I'm pretty sure. I might be mistaken on that. Okay, he's out. So the next 2 weeks, I would say, are pretty easy. Nothing, I guess, is easy. But with this defense, I don't think Holton Ahlers, that's how you say his last name. I don't think they're going to do much. Like, I think the next 2 weeks are, let's eat some cake, drink some beers, and have a nice, Saturday.
I will say about East Carolina, Holton Ahlers is probably, he might be the second best quarterback in the conference behind Mordecai, honestly. He might be. I mean, he
hasn't done jack against us, though, for years. I mean,
I understand, but he has a lot of experience, and CJ Johnson's probably the best receiver in the conference, if we're being honest with you. And I know the level of competition wasn't great, but I watched East Carolina destroy USF this past weekend, and their offense was flying. Now they aren't going to do that against UCF, but I'm not going to write that game off yet. Temple, I'll give you. They should roll Temple. Game at home as well. They're going to roll Temple, and then we get to the meat of the schedule after that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got Memphis, Cincy, Tulane, Navy, which, a couple cupcakes. But, I mean, that 3 week, listen, I'm going to say, I think, after I've watched 3 East Carolina games, don't ask me why. They've been on the TV. I've sat and watched. They don't really impress me too much. I mean, they look like this. Now, CJ Johnson, I agree. Like, besides Rashee Rice, he's probably tied for first. He is an outstanding receiver. But again, after seeing the defense, especially tonight, against a dog at wide receiver, I mean, I'm pretty confident in this defense, and I'm not going to be caught sleeping. Like, the next 2 weeks, I think, are easy dubs. I think, especially next week, like, geez, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be stressing on the couch. Like, that's going to be a fun Saturday next week. Like, geez, I don't know what I'm going to be acting like on this podcast after the game. Like, you might see a whole other side of Sean next week, but Cincy is, I think, the big game that is on the schedule. But after seeing Cincy, first of all, I think it's just ridiculous. I mean, they are not. Their defense is good. They're not good. Now, no disrespect, but all disrespect. Cincy sucks. Straight up. Their defense is good. Their offense is trash. Like, I know our offense has been like a roller coaster, but our defense is better than theirs this year. No cap. Straight up. And I think we would win by at least 10, at home against Cincy this year. I think that's no question.
I can't believe you're that confident, to be honest. You just straight up.
Maybe it's just when beating SMU.
You're on a high. I understand, but you just straight up throwing the word out. They suck. I mean, I think I've been impressed by Cincinnati. I've been impressed by Cincinnati.
They are not the 24th ranked team in this country, and I'm sorry. That is absolutely. I get from last year, and this is the bias. And I'm fine. I like an AAC team.
Averaging 40. They're averaging 40 a game offensively right now. And they suck offensively. But they're averaging 40 a game.
They're playing Kennesaw State, Miami of Ohio, Indiana, Tulsa.
Hey,
they did look good. The one game I watched was that Arkansas game.
They hung in there.
That was week 1, though.
They hung in there.
But that was week 1. Nick, we struggled last year against Boise in week 1. I mean, come on. Week 1 is the week to have an upset. Since he played good against Arkansas, but they haven't come. You cannot tell me in the last 4 weeks they have impressed you so much to where they should be ranked number 24. Now, again, I love that they're ranked because it will only help UCF since he is ranked when UCF plays them. But I'm not going to sit here and say they've impressed enough to be the 24th ranked team in the country. Give me a break.
I think they came in ranked too high, is my opinion. Since that Arkansas loss, they haven't done anything wrong to get kicked out. So I think that's why they're still at that 24 spot. And over the next couple of weeks when they play SMU, they play UCF.
I think they dropped out of the ranking, though. They dropped out.
Who, Cincy?
They got here 24.
They're at 24.
No, so Cincy, if I might be wrong, and trust me,
they did. They dropped out of the ranking. They dropped in after the Arkansas
rankings. Game.
Right.
So they got dropped out one loss. And then they got put back up last week.
Well, they beat
because they were there.
But they beat
like I said,
they beat Indiana. I mean, Indiana. I know it's Indiana, but Indiana's a chippy bunch. I mean, it's a Big Ten team.
Give me a break.
It's a Big Ten team. They beat them by 20. They did what they were supposed to do. It got them back in the rankings. I mean, you're just throwing out they suck. Like
I'm okay. And listen, that's just again, it is late. I am being optimistic with myself.
You got to get all. I know.
I'm just saying.
Listen, the Magic are starting soon, and you're gonna be crying in about a week or two into the season.
I will.
So I understand. You've got to get it all out right now. The positivity. I know.
I mean, yeah. I don't even want to talk about the first preseason. Tyler can't actually talk about it.
That's the thing. I don't think I am legally allowed.
You're not legally allowed. Trust me. You're not allowed to. That first preseason game, I wanted to cry my eyes out. So yes, I need some. My page. Me and Tyler's Pats are 1-3. I'm looking to just dunk my head in ice cold water every Sunday, hoping for a win. At this point, we got Bailey Zappi as our quarterback. I want to jump off of a cliff.
Hey, well, hold up. So I couldn't talk about the Bucs, but you can go on about Bailey Zappi on this podcast.
Listen.
I brought him up the Bucs up as a real world example. You brought Bailey Zappi up.
We don't talk about any Tampa teams. Tampa is off the map when it comes to the UCF football podcast. And we don't even give me only time we talk about it is USF slander, which I'd be more than happy to talk about the crapshoot that's going on with USF Twitter right now. I hope they keep Jeff Scott. Please keep Jeff Scott. You need the rebuild. You need him to stay your head coach, USF fans. Please keep him.
Just don't say anything bad about my friend, Gary Bohannon. Don't say anything bad about him. That's all I'm going to say.
What, that he sucks? He's the worst quarterback in the American?
Does that qualify as bad?
Does that qualify?
Nick.
I mean, the worst quarterback in the American.
Listen.
The worst.
Listen, I don't want to...
Mr. Baylor, oh my God, he went 11-2 at Baylor.
This is steering off into a territory that I didn't want it to go into. Just finish your thought up. Just please don't bring up Bailey Zappi ever again in my presence. That's all I'm
I'd
asking.
rather not. I'd rather.
I don't want to either.
I don't want to
We're all on the
either.
same
I'm
page.
okay. We can jump off that as soon as humanly possible. All right. So great win. Obviously, we always go off at the rails at the end, especially when it comes to USF and things. I think
12:15 in the morning.
I know we can all just appreciate that we got this dub. I admitted I was wrong. I picked us to lose this game. It looked like the way that we were playing, this was going to be a big L, and our top 10 defense gave us this dub. And credit to the offense and all that. I want to thank Tyler, Nick, as always, for coming on. Listen, we got Temple next week. It's going to be a fire episode with, that whole team. So that's going to be fun. A fun preview. No disrespect, but all disrespect. So yeah, go Knights, charge on. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, watching, listening, subscribing. We really appreciate the support. It's been doing so well, and it's all because of you guys. So we really appreciate it. And yeah, UCF beats SMU 41-19. Killer performance by the defense. I'm your host, Sean Green. Go Knights, charge on. We will see you next week.